Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan, and a really cool Neferata mod had dropped around the same time as Shadows of Change, so unfortunately it slipped under my radar, but a bunch of people messaged me to check it out, and I must say it does add a little bit of flair if you're a big fan of the vampire counts but want something a little bit different, especially since you'll be playing a vampire count faction right next to the Chaos Dwarfs. You've got a very strong enemy right near you, so let's talk about the faction effects and the lore effects. Starting off with the faction effects, we have the following. Starts with 2 blood kisses. Unlocks hero recruitment for vampires. Hero success chance plus 20% for vampires. Hero capacity plus 1 for vampires. Hero recruitment minus 20% for vampires. I feel like you might be getting a little bit of a theme going on. Diplomatic relations plus 60 with the Empire, plus 60 with Bretonnia, Kislev, and the Vampire Count faction. Finally, Lemian influence plus 10. This is a new mechanic that we'll talk about a little bit later. And the Lord effects are as follows. Battle healing capacity plus 250% for Neferata, meaning that she'll be able to regenerate quite a lot. Battle healing cap plus 50% for Lemian handmaidens, own army. This is a new unit. Melee attack plus 13 for embedded Lemian handmaidens, own army, and melee defense plus 13 for embedded handmaidens, again for own army. So you've got some pretty nice effects over here. Let's just jump into the campaign. So your campaign, as expected, will start in the Silver Pinnacle. This means that you're right smack in the middle of a lot of drama. You'll be starting off fighting against the greenskin factions there, but keep in mind that you will have some problems with Azag right close to you, and pretty much all the Chaos Dwarfs, as they will generally try to take those areas and cause you some problems. Thankfully, Drazov is usually kept busy by Imrek, but you do have Astrogoth, who will get very close to you and will sometimes declare war on you. It's more of an intensive campaign, however, it does feel quite good. From what I've played so far, I've actually quite enjoyed it. I like something that's going to keep me busy, and obviously with a vampire faction, that's always possible. Alright, so your legendary lord, as you can imagine, is Neferata, and at the beginning, she is not too bad in terms of stats. She does get a lot killier as you start going through her unique skill line, as she does get a lot of bonuses versus infantry, for example, getting perfect vigor, being able to get a few effects here and there. The character's unique skill line will focus on buffing up herself, but also buffing up other vampires that you might embed into your army, increasing your capacity for vampires in general. I'm a big fan of this because really she is supposed to be kind of multi-purpose. She obviously does have access to some magic too, which is a bit of a mixed lore. You've got Invocation of Nehek, but you also have, say for example, Enfeebling Foe, Okram's Mind Razor. There's a few spells here and there just kind of mixed up. It's functioning as a lore of Lemia in a sense. It's not a unique lore, but obviously that makes sense. The Lemians didn't have their own unique form of magic. It's more just being a hybrid caster. You do have some items that you'll naturally pick up, and obviously she is immortal. Sometimes these mods don't come with the characters being immortal. Sometimes it's just an update of the game which just takes that away, so keep that in mind. And construction is going to work the exact same way as the other vampire count factions do. The only thing is that you do have some new buildings, obviously some unique landmarks for Neferata, some buildings to increase capacity of certain units, and then obviously something to focus around a new hero class. There are more units than this, and you'll see them a little bit later on to the campaign, but the main idea is it's firmly rooted as a vampire count faction, which, yeah, kind of makes sense. She is a vampire. Everything that gets added in later is more of a hybridization, or maybe even just some extra flavor, which will separate it from Ghost, Manfred, Vlad, and all the others. Right, so we're going to talk about the new resource, which is Lemian Influence. This can be acquired through a multitude of different ways: buildings, characters, diplomacy, getting into fights. It's just a lot of different things, and it's used on a lot of different things. You can see that on screen. Now, what I like about this resource is while it's there and you can use it on a lot of different things, you don't need to, and you can easily just forget about it. You'll naturally start acquiring it as you progress. So it's not like you need to sit down and think, oh, how am I going to get more of this? I need more right now. And it kind of adds into a lot of things. So the main thing is obviously the technology tree. The technology tree is very much going to be the same. The only difference is that there are new sections which will give you some bonuses to basically your human units. Human units are going to be something that you're going to be seeing fairly often in your campaign if you choose to hybridize, because this means that you'll be able to get some more anti-large, you'll be able to get some, mortars and stuff. I mean, who doesn't want that? This kind of links up to how Neferata in lore starts turning humans towards her side, and this means that you can get some black powder towards your armies, which from my experience playing this campaign has been quite interesting. Having some range firepower, some heavy range firepower, protecting your backline is it's pretty tasty. So Lemian influence can be used on a number of things, and one of them is the Sisterhood Secret Market. Here you'll be able to get some black powder weapons, for example pistoliers, mortars, handgunners. I'm a big fan of this. It's basically the Tomb King stuff, but keep in mind that Neferata herself is Lemian, therefore she is Nehekaren, meaning that she does have these culture stuff linked to the Tomb Kings. And yeah, you can get some pretty tasty items. The thing mostly is for the units. I'd say I use this for the units. It's just getting the influence up to be able to pick them up, because having some mortars is quite nice. The vampire counts naturally don't have any artillery pieces, whereas, you know, the Tomb Kings do. And obviously having armor-piercing rounds is good against the Chaos Dwarfs, which, by the way, has been helping me out in my own personal campaign, mostly because Drazoth has been pushing against me, and I ended up in war with Astrogoth at the same time. Yeah, it was a complicated thing. But let's continue. Obviously, you still have access to the usual stuff with bloodlines, so you'll be able to get all those bonuses and so on. Having those pseudo-legendary Lemian lords also works well with your armies because, well, you know, theming is very important for Warhammer. You will have access to a legendary hero. She'll be available from the start. Again, a Lemian vampire. She's got a mix of lore shadow spells with the lore of vampires. It works out quite well. She's there to basically boost up the capacity and able damage of Lemian vampires and so on, also increasing the healing cap to your embedded vampire heroes. So if you want to go full vampire death squad, she's definitely the character that you're going to want to use. She looks absolutely great, by the way. She'll be showing up on screen with how she looks soon. The character does get a little bit better in combat. I must admit that she does get fairly decent. Nothing too strong here. She kind of acts like a pseudo-legendary hero. Well, even then, this character only had like a minor footnote in the lore, I believe in just maybe 1 or 2 novels. I'm not 100% too sure here. But yeah, it's always great to have something to start with, and obviously a little bit of extra damage because, again, you're going to be at war a lot. If you're playing in harder difficulties, anti-player bias kicks in, and yeah, it does get a little bit hectic. Honestly, I've been having a lot of fun with this campaign, a lot more than I would expect, actually. But added to your roster is also the Fallen Lemian Warriors. This is where you get a little bit of that Tomb King Nehekaren influence with Neferata. You'll be able to pick up spears and shields, sword and shield, and also some bows. This is going to work in the same way as the Tomb King, so you have to build up a specific building to get some extra capacity, which works perfectly fine. At the end of the day, you know, having ranges of vampire count faction is already strong enough. Being able to get them with like Tomb King archers and that, yeah, perfect. I mean, it's already got more variety to Ark and the Black, who I'm hoping one day if we do get Nagash, we'll get a rather lengthy rework. So second generation vampires are a thing here, and these are just hero characters with the lore of Lemire. Again, a mixture of different spells, so you'll be able to get the Pendulum and also Winds of Death. It's pretty much your choice which one you want to use, and if you have enough Winds of Magic, keep in mind one is more expensive than the other. They're not necessarily the most important thing to bring into your armies, but if you want a bit of a mixed lore, which I know some people do appreciate when mixed laws are introduced, I mean, that kind of works quite well. Now, what these are actually here for more than anything, at least that's the way I've been running these characters as they're relatively cheap, is to form vampire covens. Vampire covens themselves are going to work like on the cities. Keep in mind, it's not going to work like the Changelings one, so if you do lose the city, you do lose it. I know a lot of people have already gotten accustomed to it. There is a cooldown involved, which means that you'll have to wait before doing another one. 2 cooldowns. The character has a cooldown, and then obviously you've got the generalized cooldown, which increases the cost of being able to form another one. But the main idea is you can either get better raised dead costs or more Lemian influence with some added income. There's stuff like being able to spread vampiric corruption, obviously very, very useful, or again, more influence faction-wide. It very much depends on what you want from this. But if you know how to do this correctly, and keep in mind that there are beastmen factions around that will destroy those cities, you can end up getting a really good chunk of your natural income coming from that, whilst you're busy, well, sending forces out to fight everything else. You might as well have a little bit of a buffer in terms of cash, right? So you will have a new lord option, which kind of fits with the whole theme of you playing a Lemian. This can be found in the Vampire Lord section, and they are Lemian Mistresses. So again, spellcasters, they're going to be very similar to normal vampires. They will have the fabled Lemian lore of magic, so you will obviously have some pretty damn good spells. And the idea is, yeah, you know, theming. Theming is very, very important. important because Lemians are mostly known to be female, right? Male Lemians are known to exist in lore, but they are extremely rare, as Neferata mostly just trusts women. It's one of those things that made the Lemian vampires quite unique, and yeah, I kind of like how this works. It's something that I'm hoping in the future when Neferata, if Neferata is probably better yet said, because we don't know how things are going with the game, but when she, you know, gets implemented, I'm hoping that it's female lords that she'll get and not the generic vampire. Well, we need a full vampire thing. But anyways, there is some other stuff. I don't want to look about it too badly. In the White King section, we do have a new hero type 2. These are corrupted captains, which fall under the whole, well, Lemian lore. The Lemian vampires will try to sway and seduce a bunch of men to have them fall under their dark magics, to lead armies under their name. It's actually kind of cool. This also is kind of needed too, as you're going to be getting your access to a bunch of Empire troops. So being able to use these captains to actually buff them up, to get some skill points towards them, to make them much more viable for later game. Again, very, very happy about this because you've got tech, you've got skills, you've got everything that you will actually need. There's not too much to talk about the character models themselves. They look great though. I mean, Neferata's the gothic mummy that a lot of you have been waiting for. The legendary hero looks really good. The corrupted champion looks great too. Looks like he's, you know, fallen to corruption and stuff. It's awesome. Visually, these things are quite important to people when they go in for style shots and stuff, right? I'm not that much of a player for style shots. I just kind of overlook on the top of the battlefield, but I do admit that that stuff is kind of cool. What is really interesting is how the handmaidens are actually handled. Kind of throws you back to earlier Total War games where they started modding in like stuff like Warhammer. So it's a free entity unit. It's not too bad actually. I would say that the dual weapon one is much better from at least my experience playing around, but you might prefer the great weapon variant. They look great, obviously more Lemians. This kind of gives you that feeling that you're running a Lemian army without making it just a massive entity thing where, you know, they're like 120 and they're just dropping like flies. They're supposed to be more elite. This works perfectly fine. They will be targeted, but I feel like having the multiple smaller groups of entities just kind of fits from a lore perspective. And then finally you've got the Fallen Lemians, which, yeah, fair play. They're not really the most exciting thing, but you do get access to some range units, which is quite useful. And it gives you some extra cheap troops in case you want to go with a theme, right? In case you want Lemians and then some humans and stuff like that. I mean, it works out quite well. They don't have the best stats in the world, but then again, they're supposed to be low entry level troops. Having the option is still better than not having the option, which I feel is something that needs to be said a lot, not only when it comes to mods, but also just Total War. I like the idea of having the options because while I might not appreciate having Skeletal Warriors basically just version 2.0, someone else will. The archers, however, like I said, I love them. Now, yeah, the mod is great. Honestly, it gives you that feeling that you're playing Neferata. You've got a little bit of theming there. You've got a little bit of trickery to be able to get some humans in. Campaign-wise, nothing that I really dislike, in all honesty. We've got a custom battle here where I'm playing as Neferata, and we're fighting against an army of Tomb Kings led by Khalida. All in all, very, very enjoyable. Definitely something that you guys need to try out if you like vampires and if you want something a little bit different. If you just want to have a little bit of a test to see how Neferata would work there. Obviously, it's not going to be the same as what Creative Assembly would come up with. I still think that we're going to get Neferata one day, hopefully for a Vampire Counts big DLC like the Champions of Chaos, but you never know. But this does give you a good feeling of it. This does let you play something different, give you a different start position too, which is still very close to Vlad, but it gives you a natural ally there. One thing is very certain, it is nice to see faction mods being released still, as obviously right now we're in a bit of a dark period for Total War, but the modders are there, they're still wanting to work on stuff. They're giving us free content essentially to play with, which is always something that should be admired, and you should thank those modders for being able to do this. The mod itself can be found in the description below. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll let the rest of the battle play out. There are some times in the battle where I just stop randomly. That's actually because my keyboard was dying. I finally replaced it. It's a weird thing. I don't know why, but the wireless just stopped working. But have a nice day, guys, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.
come! Swiftly! Death to the living!